Welcome to 99 and 1, the premier podcast for the African diaspora. This channel is dedicated to connecting the dots of our history that was stolen and hidden in plain sight. It was in the Word of God all the time, but the popular theology, particularly Christianity, have hidden our heritage by giving us a version, a Euro Gentile version, and left out all the heritage of Christ. Because in his heritage, as a one that descended from Judah, they leave that out because we came from the tribe of Judah. Because in the 38th chapter of Genesis, Judah had kids with African Canaanites. They were the people that was prophesied to go into slavery and be taken to a foreign land. And we are those people. And Christ came through the same lineage. Yes, he's our elder brother. So I'm getting into a message today that is very important. So if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. This is taking us to our history that's been lost and stolen, and now is connecting the dots. And thank God for that. But again, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like. And if you have subscribed, make sure you share the content with others and continue to support the channel. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask your questions. I want you to understand and also check what I give you and see if it's 100% right. If not, throw it out. But I'm telling you it's right because God gave it to me. And so check. But the message today I want to dive into is scattered. The Bible talks extensively about a group of people that was going to be scattered, taken captives. They was going to be sold, taken to a foreign land, and they was to serve 400 years. That was the seed of Abraham, the chosen seed. He had pronounced that judgment. So I want to deal with this subject today, scattered. And you hear very little about it because it directly connects with our heritage. The African Americans and those that was taken in the slave trade are the descendants of the biblical Israelites. And I know you never heard that. I never heard of it until God began to explain to me the deepness of his word. But Abraham was sent to Canaan, told to leave his kinfolk behind. And he went to Canaan to live and dwell among Africans. And his descendants became natives of Canaan. That was a land of Africans, the youngest son of Ham. And so his kids and his grandkids lived there. And his grandkids, and especially his great grandkids, began to mate and have kids with the Canaanites. And so that brought the African Canaanites, who were prophesied to go into slavery, into the Israelites. And so those are the ones that fulfill the promise when God said, thy seed should be a stranger in a land not theirs, and they should serve 400 years. And so that connects us. And they leave out so many of the facts because they can't unexplain the transatlantic slave trade, and they try to make it all go back to early Egyptian bondage. No, there was two, and I'm gonna prove it to you today. There was a second bondage in the second Egypt, and there's gonna be a second Exodus that they hide as well. And so this is the deepness in the knowledge of God. This is not my knowledge. He gave it to me to share with you. So again, in Luke 21:24, the A part, this is Jesus saying this. And so keep this in mind. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword. Now keep that in mind. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive into all nations. Keep that word captive in mind because that's a particular term that's specific. They shall be led away captive into all nations. That means somebody to be captive is to be taken as a prisoner. And so he's saying a group of people are going to be taken captives and be taken and led away. They're going to be carried away. They didn't run. They didn't flee. They weren't refugees. No, they were actually taken captive as prisoners. He's talking about the transatlantic slave trade. That's Jesus Christ, the Son of God. And Luke 21:24. Don't forget that. He's talking about us, those that will be taken. And he's talking about a future event, which was the slave trade. The whole Bible covers the slave trade, and yet they have left it out. And so I want to start in Deuteronomy 4. I will be reading. And again, a message today about scattered, the ones that were scattered, because God promised his people if they didn't obey him, he was going to scatter them throughout the nations. And he gave specific terms on what would happen. We are the only people on the planet that match those terms. Check GBT, check Google, check wherever you want to find. We are the only people, the Canaanites, and so forth. So Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 27, I'll be reading if you want to follow or check it and write it later. And the Lord shall scatter you. This is Moses talking to the Israelites. And the Lord shall scatter you among the nations. Keep that in mind with an S. And you should be left few in number among the heathens. He's going to scatter you among the nations, and you're going to be among the heathens. Whenever you hear heathens in the Bible, he's talking about the Gentile nations. The Gentiles were considered heathens and pagans. So you'll be left few in number among the heathens, wherever the Lord shall lead you. Now, you're going to be scattered, you're going to be led. Now, Jesus, we just read in Luke 21:24, is confirming exactly what Moses is saying thousands of years prior, that the Lord shall scatter you among the nations, and you should be left few in numbers among the heathens. And everywhere you find black people outside of the continent of Africa, they are the minority. They are few in numbers among the heathens, among the Gentiles. And there you shall serve other gods, the work of man's hands, wood and stone, which neither see nor hear, nor eat, nor smell. But if from thence you shall seek the Lord thy God, and shall find him if you seek him with all your heart and with all of your soul. Now that's the secret. I'm going to scatter you, but in that state, you're going to be in other countries serving other gods. And yes, the Gentile Christ is considered one of those other gods. That is not the Jesus of the Bible. It is false teaching. It is idolatry. It is blasphemous. This Gentile being passed off as Christ. So if you have them in your house, that image in your church, get rid of it. It is idolatry. And at some point, God's going to send great judgment for those that have set up an image after he said there should be no graven images, no likeness or anything. And yet the devil and the Gentiles have pushed this image of a fake Christ. That is not the Bible Christ. It's idolatry. But he said, it's from there you seek him with all your heart, mind, and soul. He will heal you when they are in tribulations, and all these things are come upon you, even in the latter days. This is Deuteronomy 4:30 right now. Even in the latter days, see how the gift of God is working through Moses. He's reaching from his time all the way to the latter days. Even Jesus, thousands of years after this, is going to confirm this as well. But even in the latter days, if you will turn to the Lord thy God and should be obedient to his voice, he said, even in your scattered state, if you turn to God with all your heart, that's the solution to the problem. Now let's identify the problem. We have lived it, but I want you to see that it's here in the word of God. So go to Deuteronomy 28:45, and I'll be reading. Do follow or write it down later. He's talking about the African Americans that was taken in the slave trade, who are the descendants of the biblical Israelites through Judah. And all other Israelites was having kids also with Canaanite Africans. And we are the descendants of those people. The early Israelites, you never heard that. You should have. You just never was taught that. And if you want for references, look in Judges chapter 3, verse 5 and 6. The Israelites began to have kids with the Canaanites, the same people that was prophesied in Genesis 9:27 to go into slavery to the Gentiles, the Europeans. It all connect 100%. But in Deuteronomy 28:45, I'll be reading. And moreover, all these curses should come upon thee and should pursue thee and overtake thee till you be destroyed, because you hearken not unto the voice of the Lord your God to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded you. So Moses is telling them that if you don't take heed to God, you're going to go into bondage. And he's telling you why. And they should be upon your neck as a sign and for a wondering upon your seed forever. Now, if you fail, it's going to be a sign. You're going to be marked by this forever, what God is going to do to you because you did not heed him. And he goes in verse 47, because you served not the Lord your God with joyfulness and gladness of heart for the abundance of all things. Therefore, should you serve your enemy, which the Lord shall send against you. The Lord is going to send the enemy against you because you wouldn't serve him in gladness and joyfulness of heart, and in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things. And they should put a yoke of iron upon your neck until he have destroyed you. Now, that yoke of iron mean those chains of slavery. That's what that means. This is not giving examples of things that's not true. He's telling you these are facts, that because you didn't serve the Lord and wouldn't yield to him and get all things, blessings served to you on a platter, you're going to be taken to another land and it's going to be a sign of wonder. And what happened to us has been a sign and wonder throughout the world. Everyone has wondered, my God, how these people have dealt with so much. Yes, he said it would be a sign and wonder. And he said that you're going to end up, because you wouldn't serve me, you're going to serve your enemy in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And yes, we're going to be like a homeless kid that's out, can't fend for ourselves. We have to look to someone else all the time. This is what Moses warned them. In verse 49, this is Deuteronomy 28:49. The Lord shall bring a nation against you from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue you shall not understand. He was talking about the Gentiles, a nation from afar. He was going to bring them against you, swift as the eagle. And that's a play on words. American symbol was the eagle. It was the American eagle sign symbol of it. But he was talking about the Gentiles. He will send them against you from afar, a nation of fierce continents, which shall not regard the person or the young or the old, nor shall they show favor to the young. They're going to have no mercy. And Lord, no, they had no mercy. They allowed millions to die at sea. They allowed our ancestors to die even before they got on the boat. They didn't care. And the Lord said this will happen because why? He told us in verse 49, all these curses should come upon you and should pursue thee and overtake you till thou be destroyed, because you hearken not unto the voice of the Lord thy God to keep his commandments and to his statutes in which he commanded you. We were commanded. We had a different expectation than other people because our ancestors were the ones that the Lord came to deliver from Egypt, early Egypt. Those are our ancestors. Yes, we came through the Arabs and the Africans blended, and those were the people in early Egypt. Did you know that? Yes, because the Israelites had kids, kept having kids for hundreds of years with the Canaanites. And so there was a blend of them. That's why when Moses came, it was hard to detect that he was a Hebrew and he passed for an Egyptian because over hundreds of years prior, they was all having kids with each other because remember, Abraham left his descendants, his family in his old land, and he came to Canaan with just a few people. So who did they mate with? Other than Isaac, Isaac got a wife from his old land. So that was a part heritage that's Arab, but then the rest was a mixture of Arab and Africans. And we are the descendants of those people. And that's what separates us from all other Africans. We're Africans, but they don't have the same heritage that came through Judah. So our homeland is not the west coast of Africa, but our ancestral land is Israel. And one day we're going to be returned back to that land. Yes, we were scattered, and people think we just were scattered in the slave trade and it's going to stay that way. But no, the Bible let us know that there's going to be a return of those that were scattered. So remember in Deuteronomy, but now go to Jeremiah. Now he's going to confirm what Moses just said. This is thousands of years later about those that's going to be scattered. Jeremiah 16, verse 10 through 15. Let me read that. Um, and it shall come to pass when you show the people all these words, and they shall say unto you, wherefore have the Lord pronounced all this great evil against us? Now, see, that's the question we done hear for all these hundreds of years, and yea, even a few thousands of years, as far as us being scattered, but definitely in the slave trade, a few hundreds of years, in terms of why have the Lord pronounced such great evil against us? And what is our iniquity, or what is our sin that we have committed against the Lord our God? Now that's in Jeremiah 10, verse 10. And he's telling Jeremiah, when they ask you this, and we have all asked that in our heart and spirit, he said, explain this to them. Then shall you say unto them, because your fathers have forsaken me, said the Lord, and have walked after other gods, and have served them, and forsaken me, and have not kept my law. This is why the slave trade took place. This is why the transatlantic slave trade took place. I don't care what anybody say. This is what God gave me, and it's right here. And he explained to me clearly why. Because these things. Because he's telling, he enumerated them, literally. And then should you say unto them, because your fathers have forsaken me, said the Lord, one, and have walked after other gods, two, and have served them, and have worshipped them, and have forsaken me, and have not kept my law. He gives 6 reasons why the slave trade took place. It wasn't for gold, it wasn't for just material things. He said, I was going to raise up a nation to bring up against you that had fierce countenance. So they was raised up because keep in mind, they're not going to get a pass for what they have done. But the Europeans, you have to keep in mind, at the time of the slave trade, just 100 years or more prior, they was in the dark ages. They didn't even know anything. They was 80% illiterate in Europe, just over 100 years prior to the slave trade. So God raised them up to come against us, and He explained why um, He did it. He explained why, because of we had provoked Him to jealousy by disobedience, and that's why. And so He goes on. I'm going to read the rest of this. And in verse 12, and He said, then should you say unto them, because your fathers have forsaken me and worshiped them, and He give you the 6 reasons, and you have done worse than your fathers. For behold, you walk every one after imagination of his evil heart, that they may not hearken to me. And He said, not only so, those that say, well, why are we being held accountable for what they did? He said, well, you have done worse than them, because they acknowledged God and failed. You have people now that say they their own God. The world is mine. I'm doing my own thing. So He said, you have done worse than your father. Behold, you walk everyone after the imagination of his own evil heart. You walking after your own. You have become your own God. That's what He's saying to us, this generation now, that said, well, why are we being held accountable for what they did? He said, you're worse than them. That's something to think about. Wow. And therefore, because of all of this, therefore, in verse 13 is Jeremiah 16, verse 13. Therefore, that means He's continuing to explain, will I cast you out of this land into a land that you know not, neither you nor your fathers, and there shall you serve other gods day and night, where I will not show you favor or no mercy. Now, notice that that's 16:13. I will cast you out of this land into a land that you don't even know. Now, we didn't know anything about America before it became America. He said, I'm going to cast you out into a land that you know not. Now, this don't apply to anybody else on the planet. Find anybody that was cast out of their land into a land that they didn't know about. Now, who the religious world is calling the chosen seed, it don't match them. What land were they cast out to? A land that they didn't know about. We didn't know nothing about America when they brought us over here. We didn't know their language, so we couldn't understand them. And so He's talking about the Africans that was taken in the slave trade. Therefore, will I cast you out of this land into a land that you know not, neither you nor your fathers, and there should you serve other gods day and night. And again, that Gentile version of Christ is the God that He's talking about, and other gods, wood and stone. Look how materialistic we are. We have to reject all of that. The Gentile Christ, and accept the real biblical Christ that came through Judah, not this Gentile looking European Christ. That is the God that He's talking about. And He said, you shall serve other gods day and night, where I would not show you any favor. And we have struggled and wondered why. He's explaining why, these answers. Therefore, behold, the days come, said the Lord, that it should no more be said. Now, He's talking about the 2 different events. The Lord liveth that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. That He's saying the time going to come, that's not going to be the biggest deal that ever happened. He said, but in verse 15, but the Lord liveth that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north. Now, He's talking about the early Israelites, and He's talking about the future Israelites. Notice that. Now, this is left out of popular theology. Therefore, behold, the days come, said the Lord, that it should no more be said that the Lord liveth that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt, the old deliverance out of that bondage. But the Lord liveth that brought up the children of Israel, this their descendants, from the land of the north. America is the land of the north. You say, well, how? Well, America, even though they call it the West, but from Africa, the ships went north. So they referred to it as the land of the north. And this is where He's saying the children of Israel, the descendants would be. We are those people. How? I explained it to you already through Judah. Judah had kids in the 38th chapter of Genesis. He was an Israelite. He was one of the 12 children of Israel. He had kids with African Canaanites, the very people that was going to be prophesied to go into slavery. We are those people. And so that's what make us Israelites, descendants of the Israelites, descendants of the Hebrews, descendants of the biblical Jews. We are those people. And no one else going to match this. No matter how much you try, how much they try to cover it up, no one else is going to match this. And so the Lord liveth that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north and from all the lands where he had driven them. So that was a great exodus in early Egypt, but the second exodus is going to be even greater. So he said it's going to be greater than the first because Moses went in and brought a nation out of the midst of a nation out of the midst of a nation. Well, the next one, he's going to bring those that were scattered in the slave trade out of many nations, millions, and yea, even up to billions. He's going to bring them out of those nations by divine power. And it's not going to take one man like Moses. It's going to be through the power of the Holy Ghost. He's going to bring them back to the land that he promised his forefathers. And yet many say they already returned. That is false teaching. That is not matching none of these scriptures at all. And that's a big conspiracy, a devil conspiracy to cover that up. That's why they call that land the Middle East. They call it the Levant. That is the Africa. Israel is originally Africa. It was called Canaan. And the Canaanites were the indigenous people. And we came from the Canaanites. And he said through Abraham, your seed, and his seed came through the Canaanites, through Judah, who became the possessor of the promise. And so Judah kids were Arab African Canaanites, and they became the descendants of the Israelites. And they are the people that left and got kicked out of Israel and was exiled multiple times, and they ended up on the west coast of Africa among other Africans, and they just lost their identity, and they thought and kind of lived in that west coast. But during the time that God was ready for the slave trade to take place, those West Coast Africans began to identify those that were migrants, and they sold them into the colonizers to fulfill God's word that they was going to go into bondage. Isn't that amazing? It's terribly amazing what happened, but God had already foretold it thousands of years in advance. And so he's saying, and to the land of the north from all the lands where he had driven them, and I will bring them again into their land that I gave unto their fathers. Behold, I will send for many fishers, said the Lord, and they shall fish them, and after will I send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them in every mountain and from every hill and out of the holes of the rocks. For my eyes are upon all their ways. That's deep. He said, I see them in the state that they're in. My eyes are upon them, but I promised Abraham, and I'm going to bring them back to the land of Israel. Yet everyone know we were scattered in the slave trade, but no one ever talked about that we're going to be restored back to the land. That land of Israel belonged to those that was taken captive in the slave trade. You never heard this, but this is what the Bible teach, and it's been left out of popular theology. Behold, I will send, he said, I'm going to send for fishers, then I'm going to send for hunters, and they're going to go into the valleys, they're going to go into the mountains and the holes. And he said in verse 17, for my eyes are on their ways. They are not hid from my face, neither is their iniquity hid from my eyes. And first I will recompense their iniquity and their sin double, because they have defiled my land, they have filled my inheritance with the carcass of their detestable and abominable things. O Lord, my strength and my fortress and my refuge in the day of affliction, the Gentiles, meaning in the tribulation period, shall come unto thee from the ends of the earth and shall say, surely our fathers have deceived us, and we have inherited lies, vanity, and things therein is no profit. So those that have deceived people that they are the chosen people, he's going to force the Gentiles to come from all over the world to bow down, like Jesus said in Revelation. I'm going to make them bow, and they're going to bow and realize that they have been told lies by their forefathers, that they were the chosen people, but they don't match none of this. The chosen people are those that were taken in the transatlantic slave trade and were scattered throughout the earth. And the thing is, they could not unexplain the slave trade, so they just left it out. That's what God gave me. They could not unexplain it, so they act like that don't have nothing to do with scriptures, and yet all the prophets were told about the slave trade. That's why Jesus confirmed it in Luke 21:24. And so despite all that we've been through, and remember he said he was going to send a nation that didn't have any mercy, and that's exactly what have happened to us. And so we're going to have to keep that in mind. And in Ezekiel 36:19, he said, I shall scatter them among the heathen, and they were dispersed through the countries according to their doings. I judged them. So this wasn't God's fault. He had warned and sent prophets. He had used compassion. He had been patient, and he had warned us to stop looking to the other nations and dwelling in idolatry and the sins. And Moses warned him. He said, I call heaven and earth against you this day. And he told him, if you do not obey the Lord with all your heart, you're going to go into bondage. And the slave trade was the fulfillment of that. And so that's why there was no mercy. He said there would be no mercy. And we was taken, and no one will understand the terrible reality that our ancestors went through. The death, the disregard for humanity. They was vicious. They raped them. They beat them. They killed them. They tormented them. They did all sorts of things. And this was a people that was forsaken by God. And he said, I will turn my eyes and I won't listen. And then the time is up. And he said, my eyes is upon them. He's watching over us now, whether people know it or not. And the time going to come in the future where it's going to be time. The Gentile era is going to end. And then he's going to begin to turn back to the biblical Jews. And he's going to bring them from all rocks, the mountains, and all the places they've been scattered. And he's going to bring them back to the land he promised Abraham, our forefather, because we came through the seed of Abraham through Judah. And check that out. And so, yeah, the world say the Israelites are lost. The lost Israelites are the Canaanites, also known as the African Americans and those that scattered in the slave trade. One day, they're going to be returned back to the land of our forefathers, which is Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as our forefathers. And you've never heard this, and the whole Bible rests on these people. And it's the whole world economy rests upon the shoulders of those that was brought in the slave trade. Yes, we're amazing people. We done been through so much. We done been through two different forms of slavery. And the transatlantic slave trade is the greatest atrocity known to man, the magnitude of it. And we are still reeling and rocking from the impact of it. But the Lord said, my eyes is upon them, and I'm going to send fishers. And I'm one of the fishers. I'm going to send hunters, and I'm going to reach them wherever they are throughout the earth and let them know that you are my people. And those that listen, they're going to be brought into the truth now, and those that's not, it's going to be in the tribulation period. When he comes for his third appearance, he's going to come solely as the Lion of the tribe of Judah to begin to pay recompense to the Gentiles for what they have done to his people. And then those that pierced him will look upon him. Yes, that was our ancestors that turned him over to the Romans and killed him and said, let his blood be upon us and all our children. And so we've been in deceit and deceived all that time. And now it's time to wake up. We are those people of the Bible. Yes, we are the biblical Israelites. We are the descendants of them, because Abraham, that's why God changed his name from Abram to Abraham, because his future would be a connecting of his Arabs and the Hamites. So Abram connecting with the Hamites, Abraham, and he was going to become a father of many nations. So keep that in mind. God bless you. God bless you. Continue to pay uh, continue to come, continue to listen, but those that are scattered are going to be returned back. We were scattered in the slave trade because we would not heed God. And I know people have different opinions on it, and I don't go by opinions. I go by what the facts are. And these are facts, and I have more on top of what I already provided. We failed God, our ancestors failed God, and because we were warned, Moses warned the Israelites, which are our forefathers. He warned them that if they didn't obey, they would be cast out to another land. And read Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, and Jeremiah, the 16th chapter. It's some deep stuff. It explains everything that we have entered and dealt with for all these years. But the time of the Gentiles is coming to a close. And in Ezekiel 34:6, he said, my sheep wandered through all the mountains and upon every hill. Yea, my flock was scattered upon all the face of the earth, and none did search or seek after them. Yes, we're those people. Ezekiel 34:6, the Lord said they wandered all over the world and nobody went to look for them. And they say the Israelites are lost. Yes, the lost Israelites are the Canaanites, and the Canaanites are the Africans that was taken in the slave trade. We are those people. and thank God that His light is shining and it's time to turn back to God with all our heart, with all our mind, with all our soul. I ask that you seek God with all your heart. You can come into it now. The knowledge of the truth. Jesus, He came as our elder brother. He came to find us then. We was lost then and we became even more lost during the slave trade, but we was lost before the slave trade. And the Lord came to seek and save us then, and we had Him killed. And now we have our chance to come back to the Lord. So God bless you. And don't forget this scattered. Everybody knows we're scattered, but you never hear anybody talk about the end result. I know the end results because it's all in the Word. I can't cover it all today, but we're going to be restored back, and it's going to be greater than a deliverance out of early Egypt, where He opened up a whole sea and they walked on dry ground. It was by miracle power, but before miracle power, there was great judgment. Great judgment. And it's going to be great judgment begin to fall on the Gentiles. And the Lord is saying, come out from among them and be ye separate. And the judgment is going to begin to fall as He begin to slowly turn back to His flock. And then when the Gentile era is in, He's going to turn back directly to the Jews. But we're going to pay double, He said, for what we have done and for what we have done to His land. And then when He comes, He's going to deliver all of us of all of our sins. And in a day, a nation is going to be saved. He's going to restore us back. He's going to push those people out of Israel, and they're going to bow down, like He said in the book of Revelation. I know those that say they are Jews and are not, but they do lie. I will make them bow down, He said. And we find it in Jeremiah saying the same thing. We find Moses saying the same thing, that God is going to restore us back to the land. God bless the God of the Hebrews, and continue to follow. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I would love to hear your questions. I don't have time to debate. If you have questions and you want answers, I can give them to you as God has provided them, but I'm not going to debate you on facts and fiction and propaganda. I'm not going to go and sort through all the propaganda, but I can give you facts so you can see God about them and see if what I'm telling you is 100% accurate, because this is not my thoughts. I got them from God. So God bless you. Come again. And